got a project I got to do on the hot rod Model A. The boots on the rack and pinion are cracked. It's time to put new boots on that. I have replacement boots from Summit for the Unisteer rack and pinion. This is the longer one. This is the shorter side. And the instructions on how to replace the shorter side, but no instructions on how to replace the longer side. I guess we'll figure that out as we go. So we have to disconnect the steering shaft and the rack mounts, and over on the other side the drag link comes down right out of here, and the whole rack should drop right out the bottom. Here's what we got going on. Crawl under here and take a look. That boot is split wide open, and I've tried patching them over the last couple of years, but I said it's time for new ones. So let's get started on this project. All right, let's see if we can get this drag link off of here. There we go. I'm removing the rack and pinion. I've got 5 hex screws to take out, and it should drop right out of there. Okay, the screws are out of there. I'm going to crawl underneath and see if it drops out of here now. Okay, we're back down underneath. Let's see if we can get this out of here. There we go. Let's get this over on the bench. So here's the Unisteer off the Model A. This is the old boot, which had a nice rip in this end of it. So I slit the boot, took that off. Now the problem is the new boot needs to go all the way up to here, but this hole is too small to fit over all these areas. So what I've done, I've removed my drag link bar. Take the nut off of there. We still have to get this portion off of here. This is threaded on to this rod. Very, very tight. So here's what I had to do. Put this up in the vise like that. Got out my pipe wrench. And managed to break it free so it turns just like that. Now it's loose. Now I've got to get this off of there, so I think I'll clamp this in the vise, put a wrench on here. I'm just going to have to keep on turning this out of here with the pipe wrench because the vise would not hold this round piece strong enough. Tighten up the vise a little more. This is rather awkward, but eventually we'll get it out of there. I think they used Loctite on this. It's really coming out, and there's some blue in there, so it was probably Loctited blue. I'll have to re-Loctite it. This is not something you want coming apart when you're driving down the road. Yeah, you can see blue Loctite in there. And this is a ball socket here, so that does not come apart, but this rod does swivel in that ball socket. Okay, I'm going to try putting this in the vise now because it's getting a lot easier to turn. There we go. Don't forget the blue Loctite. Now we'll see how the boot fits. Hopefully this will go on there now. It should go over that. Gonna put a little lube on these ends so that it may slide easier. And before I put the boot on, I packed some grease into this ball joint here. Okay, let's see if this will slide on there. Got that part over. Now comes the tough part. Got to get this up over this section. There's little nubs that will hold it on there. Come on, you. There we go. And this end has to go a little bit farther. Yeah. Almost get there. There we go. That's where it needs to be. Just like that. They gave me a new tie wrap and a new clamp. Whoop. This clamp goes here. Tie wrap's going to go around there. Blue Loctite, put that back together. Then we got to work on this other end. Now, before you clamp this end up tight, you're going to want to leave this section exposed so that you can tighten this up. You're going to be using the pipe wrench on here and the wrench. See if we can get this to turn as far as it can go. Okay, I used the thread locker. Got it very tight. Now I can slide my boot back down, put my clamp in place. This end is done. Okay, clamp is in place. Everything's back together. Now we're going to work on the other end. This is pretty amazing. The other boot comes with instructions, which the first one did not. Had to figure that out ourselves. But the second one gives us detailed instructions. It comes with the new boot, comes with a new zip tie and an O-ring. I believe, okay, the zip tie is on this end, the O-ring fits in here. Matter of fact, the old one appears to be coming out. And because this is torn, I had to use a clamp and some tape to try to hold this back together. Anyway, we got 8 good years out of these. About 25,000 miles on the car. The steering is still working great, nice and tight. The boots wore out, that's all. They can be purchased at Summit or Jegs. Anyhow, here's the removal of the old boot. Cut the zip tie. This end is already coming apart. Here's the old O-ring. Get some scissors. I'm going to slit this old boot. Shows some cracking in all the folds here. And there we go. Gets rid of that. I'll have to clean out a little bit of the old O-ring in this slot around here. Make room for the new one. And it mentions re-greasing the gear, so I'll do that before the boot goes on. Looks in good shape. Well, I cranked this rack gear out as far as it would go, cleaned out all the teeth, and I'm going to liberally repack with grease before I put the boot back on. Okay, I've re-greased the rack, worked it in and out a couple times. Now it's time to center it up and put the boot in place. And I also made sure this groove was clean so that the new O-ring will fit in there properly. Okay, we're going to grease up this new boot so that it will slide on. Just using some silicone grease for this. Well, it's quite a struggle getting this all the way on and getting this end over here, and I learned the hard way. I thought there was a piece of black rubber supposed to stay in there, but it turns out this was the tail end of my old boot, and that had to come out of there. So I managed to get that out of there. Now we have to put the O-ring on. And the O-ring is going to stretch. Let's put a little grease on that. Now you can see how much trouble I had getting the boot on there. There we go. Okay, I think that finishes it. However, I did notice when I cranked it all the way to the right, this boot slipped off its mount. The tie wrap, the zip tie was on there tight, but there's not much of a nub to hold it on there, and it slipped right off. So I'm going to have to do something to this to give it a rough finish, or get these nubs to stick out farther or something, so that the boot won't slide off when I turn the car to the right. Or, yeah, to the right. To the left. Yeah, it's when I turn the car to the left that it pulls. Okay, gonna work on that. And because this boot wanted to slide off, what I did was take a file and rough up this surface, carefully keeping the filings from going in behind the boot. Went all the way around, so now when I tighten the boot down in this area, it should not slide back. So gonna put the zip tie on there and give it a shot. Okay, now we're gonna do a left-hand turn, stretch this boot out and see if it stays in place. Much better. Yeah, the last time it popped right off of there, so it's best to knurl the inside of there to fix that problem. Now this other side had a very large lip, so that's not a problem. That will not slip off. And now I just have to put it back in the car. Okay, I got that sitting up in there in place. All I got to do is fit the 5 screws back into the mount, put my drag link on the other side, we should be good to go.